Hi everyone, I'm Khadiga AboBakr and I'm the Arabic Fulbright FLTA for this year, 2019-2020, and I'm going to talk to you today about Egypt, and this is where I come from. So let us start. Okay, so Egypt in Arabic, it means Misr. And actually the full name of the country is Arab Republic of Egypt, as you can see. So that's the full name of the country, but you know, the common name is just Egypt, exactly like United States of America, you just say USA. So just before I go on with that, I would like to introduce myself. So I'm, like I told you, I'm Khadiga AboBakr, that's my name. And I come from Cairo, Egypt. And I come from three origins. So I'm Egyptian, Palestinian, and Sudanese because my mom, she's Palestinian and my dad is Sudanese and his mom, which is my grandma, she's Egyptian. I also speak English, Arabic, a little bit of Italian, and I can understand French. I actually studied all those three languages, but the one that I'm fluent at is just English. Italian and French, I studied them several years before, but I don't remember anything right now. I worked as an English language instructor for like 7 years so far, and I'm the Arabic Fulbright FLTA for 2019-2020. So the very first word that I would like to start with is marhaba. So marhaba, that means like welcome or hello in Arabic. So whenever you meet like an Arab person and you would like to say that in his own language, you can always say marhaba. There's also another way to greet a Muslim person, a Muslim Arab person, which is Assalamu alaikum. This is how we greet each other in Egypt and in most of the Arab countries, especially those who are Muslims. There is Egypt. So Egypt is this little one right here. So this is Africa. That's the continent Africa, and this is Egypt. As you can see, like it has a very unique location, and that is why it does a lot of things in the Middle East as a role, a political role, I mean. So that's Africa that I told you about. So Egypt is right here, and this is the Mediterranean Sea, and that's the Red Sea. So we have two of the seas in addition to the actually the River Nile. And if I will talk to you about Africa, I have to tell you more about the Middle East. So the Middle East, that's simply the Arab-speaking countries. And the Arab-speaking countries, Arabic is actually spoken by 22 of these countries, and this is what we call the Middle East. These are the countries that speak Arabic. As you can see, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Sudan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, and so on. So these are the Arab-speaking countries, and actually all of their you know, like all of them, they have like a different dialect of Arabic. Like for example, there is the standard Arabic that we all speak, and that is the Arabic that is being taught at schools. However, there's a dialect, like there is the Egyptian Arabic, there is like the Libyan Arabic, the Moroccan Arabic. I went to Morocco and I couldn't understand a word, and they speak Arabic. You have to stay there for some time to get accustomed to the words, to get accustomed to everything. So there are several dialects. Every country has its own Arabic. However, there is the standard Arabic that gathers all of them. So as I told you, Arabic is spoken by 22 countries, and actually Arabic is currently spoken by 423 million people. As you can see, it is actually ranked among the top 10 most spoken languages in 2019. And there it is right here, standard Arabic. And let us start talking about Egypt. So just before you know things about Egypt, you have to know how big is Egypt compared to the United States. So as you can see, this is the United States, and the red one, the red part, that's Egypt. That means that the United States is actually 10 times bigger than Egypt. I didn't know that before. That was a very interesting information to know, actually. And if Egypt was one of the states of the United States, like one of them, it would have been this one, as you can see. So this is how big is Egypt compared to how big is the United States. So as you can see, like so you've got around 50 states here in the United States, and exactly like you've got states, we've got governorates. So we've got 27 governorates in Egypt, and they are all here. They're determined or highlighted by a different color. Like here, there's like Matruh governorate, there is Asyut governorate, there is Cairo governorate, the one I come from, there is Qina governorate, and so on. So that means it's exactly the same idea of the states, but it's governorates. So let me show you more of the geography of Egypt. So as you can see here, this part, that's the Mediterranean Sea, like I told you. And this one, that's the Red Sea. Here is the Nile River, and it takes all the way from here down there. And then that's the Eastern Desert, and that's the Western Desert. So as you have noticed by now, Egypt, like around 80% of, you know, of all of Egypt is just desert. So where do people live? Like where do they live and exist? They all live right there around the River Nile. That's where we are. That's the Nile River, and that's where everybody is. And this is where most of the 27 governorates are actually. So Cairo is actually right, let me show you. Cairo is right here, which means that it's right here. This is what we call delta, and Cairo is right here. So it's like in the north of Egypt. All right, and that's the size of Cairo compared to the size of Egypt. Actually, Cairo is like, that's you know, the capital of Egypt, and at the same time, this is where, you know, the industries are. If anybody wants to work, they go to Cairo. If anybody wants to, like, to, you know, to get a certain kind of education, they go to Cairo as well, and so on. So Cairo is like DC here, or like, no, I would actually say like Cairo is more like, well, I'd say actually Cairo is more like New York. And it's like the number of people who live there, and the number of people, like, it is really crowded. It looks exactly like New York. When I went to New York, it felt like just Cairo. That was just Cairo. It wasn't really something that I was not used to. Everything there reminded me of Cairo. So the population of Egypt, now we are more than 100 million Egyptians. And of course, the number is increasing like by day. There is an increase in the number. But that's like that's like kind of the most updated number so far. Well, about the currency. So here you've got the US dollar, we've got the Egyptian pound. So we say pound. We use the word pound to describe the Egyptian pound, and this is like a paper, like this is like like a bill, like a one that you can hold, like a pound bill, and this one is a coin, and they are an Egyptian pound, but we have both options. Like we have the paper kind, and we've got the coin kind. And 1 Egyptian pound equals actually 15 US. Oh, it's the other way around. I'm so sorry. That's a typo. So it should be, I'm so sorry about that. It should be 1 US dollar equals 15 Egyptian pounds. We're gonna pretend that you didn't see that part, or you didn't see this typo. But yeah, this is how it is. And there at times, actually, there was at certain times there was you know, like, there was a time I remember when 1 US dollar equaled around 17 Egyptian pounds. That did happen in the past few years. So about the religions. So what kind of religions do we have in Egypt? We have in Egypt 2 religions, like the main ones. We've got Islam, and that's, as you can see, like 90% of the population, they are Muslims, and only 10% are Christians. like in the past, like in the past decades, we did have Jewish people who used to live in several parts of Egypt, like Alexandria and other parts of the country. However, as far as I know, there is no Jewish people now living in Egypt. There might be just like very few cases, but not that I'm aware of. All right, so I don't know if you are familiar with his face or not, but that is the former president of Egypt. He did resign back in 2011 when, that's his name, Hosni Mubarak, and the reason of his resignation was the following. Just before I tell you about the resignation, it is important to note that Egypt was a monarchy until 1958, 52, before it was declared as a republic. So now the type of government, like, the president is on top of everything, but we do have a constitution and a parliament that really runs the country. So the reason why Hosni Mubarak actually resigned from his role as a president is because of the Arab Spring. I would like to tell you more about this, but this is how it was. That was a revolution. This is how it looked like in Tahrir Square, and that's one of the biggest squares in Cairo. Everybody went out and they were actually calling for freedom, they were calling for justice, they were calling for equality, they were calling for a lot of stuff. And on top, they were calling for the president to be toppled. Actually, Egypt was not the first to initiate the revolution. The very first Arab country to initiate the revolution, and then Egypt followed, it was Tunisia. And it was actually, Tunisia is a small country compared to Egypt. And this is maybe like what urged Egyptians to, to go ahead with their revolution. Like if Tunisia could do that, then definitely we can. So Tunisia, they were the first to go, and then it was Egypt, and then there was another in Syria and in Algeria. That is why it's called the Arab Spring, because it didn't happen in one country. It actually happened in several countries simultaneously in the Middle East. And that was the result. So Hosni Mubarak resigned, and after that he got imprisoned, and he was he was going to court because there was several cases against him, but he passed away like a few months ago. Now the current president of Egypt is Abdel Fattah Sisi, and he's the current president right now. All right, let me tell you about the education in Egypt, which I'm sure you don't know very much about. So in Egypt, the education system is divided into 3 levels. The very first level is the basic level, and this one it has this one it has kindergarten, and this is for 2 years. And after the kindergarten, there is the primary stage, and this one is for 6 years before the preparatory stage, and this one lasts for 3 years. So I mean, that's like a big chunk of a stage, right? After that, there is the secondary level, and the secondary level is only for 3 years before we go to college, and colleges, they are mainly for 4 years, and that's the higher level or the higher education. Okay, so one of the nicest topics that I would like to talk to you about today is public transportation in Egypt, because I can assure you that so many people, so many of my friends who've been to Egypt, and they're foreigners, like they were Americans, and they were from other countries also. They did like the public transportation system that we have in Egypt. Although it's very crowded, but it's very efficient, and no matter where you're going, you are definitely getting a ride there. This one in the picture, that's this is the metro, the underground, and so far we have around 3 lines. They're working on the 4th, and it's been one of the most successful public transportation means of public transportation in Egypt. It carries like every day around, it's actually over than 1 million passengers every day on a daily basis, and it's been it's been offering a substitution or an alternative that helped not for the traffic to be so crowded. I mean, now the rush hours, and people can can go to the metro as a resort, you know, in order not to be late home or not to be late at work just because there is a rush hour. So the metro, that's one of the things that's going to help you a lot to get to work on a daily basis. I used to use the metro every day. It's my favorite means of public transportation, and it's been helping me a lot. All right, so this one, that's the minibus. Oh, this one, I'm sorry, the one on the right, the one that you can see right now, that's the bus. But we do have minibuses, and that's the minibus. So it's a little bit smaller in size. However, we have something else that's called a microbus. And then we've got the tuk-tuk or the rickshaw. So now we've got the bus, the minibus, the microbus, and the tuk-tuk. Okay, the microbus definitely is smaller than the minibus. So like we've got like from the biggest to the smallest, we've got the bus, minibus, microbus, and then of course the tuk-tuk, so, or the rickshaw. This one is just exported from India, I guess. In order to explain the differences in the size, we have to take a look at the following picture. So as you can see, this one, the blue one, that's a bus. This is a bus. This one is a minibus. As you can see, there is a difference in the size, right? The one that follows right there, that is the microbus. So we've got the bus, the microbus, the bus, and then the minibus, and then the microbus. And of course, the tuk-tuk or the rickshaw, that's very, very, very small. All right, so you cannot talk about a country without talking about food, right? So let me tell you about let me tell you about several famous Egyptian dishes. Let's start with the falafel. So falafel, which is called falafel in Arabic, that's basically the beans, and we've got our brand. We've got this kind of bread which is called aish baladi. And you eat it actually with several stuff, as you can see. Like you eat that using, like, you don't just eat the beans and that's it with the bread. You have, like, you know, a group of stuff to eat together. People always go for the falafel to eat it. They go to the falafel food truck. So the falafel food truck, it's a food truck that is, you know, in the streets, exactly like New York, when you find food trucks everywhere when you go, and people stay there. They, as you can see, like, they stand up and they order, and then they have their order right in front of them right there, and then they eat, and then they go. So people love these food trucks, let me tell you that, because it tastes really good. And I tried it before. It does have something that is different. So yeah. All right, so that's our national Egyptian dish. That's kushari. If you didn't, I mean, I'm sure some of you heard about it before because it's really famous. If you didn't, so it's a mixture of pasta, macaroni, hummus, and like a lot of other stuff. I don't cook that well, so I'm not very familiar with the ingredients. But yeah, I mean, if you went, we can eat it for lunch, we can eat it for dinner. You know, some people, they can even have it for breakfast, you know? So, I mean, it's very cheap. So people, I mean, like, everyone can actually get it. It's not a problem at all. So yeah. That's a kushari restaurant. This is how you find them standing like that. So Kushari Tahrir, that's one of the most famous kushari restaurants in Egypt. And as you can see, this is how they prepare your, you know, plate of kushari. Now I'm hungry. All right, so mahshi. Mahshi is basically stuffed vegetables. We Egyptians, we love to stuff everything. We stuff the cabbage, we stuff the, grape leaves, we stuff the pepper, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we stuff a lot of like a bunch of stuff. So that's mahshi. This is one of the most delicious meals ever. You have to try that if you are to go to Cairo. I know that sometimes there are restaurants like who sell this kind of stuff here in the States, but it's not as delicious as it is made in Egypt. So this is how they do it. Like, you have everything right here. This is not everything actually, but so you have everything here, and then you roll the grape leaf. All right, as I told you, we stuff everything. So this is zucchini, we stuffed it. This is pepper, we stuffed it. This is even eggplant, we did stuff it as well. So mahshi, this is other types of mahshi. So we've got mahshi, like, you know, the cabbage one, we've got the eggplant one, we've got the grape leaf one, and so on. Oh, and molokhia, that's the one, the green one. That's like a soup, but it's green, and we normally eat it with rice. Like we put it on rice, mix them together, and then we eat. And then there is mumbar. I guess you may have seen that before, or maybe you've got something that is similar. I don't want to explain what that is, but you know, but I mean, it's really delicious. I love both of them. Hawashi, and that's one of the most, that's also one of the most popular dishes in Egypt. And it's just, you know, the baladi bread that I told you about, the Egyptian kind of bread that I told you about. It's stuffed with a certain spiced up, you know, kind of meat and stuff like that. And then you have it and you eat it. And believe me, there was actually a restaurant in San Francisco. It was an Egyptian restaurant run by an Egyptian person, and he had this, and one of our friends, he was Chinese, he tried it and he loved it so much. I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but it doesn't matter. Just if you have seen that anywhere in an Arab restaurant, you have to try it. All right, so let me tell you about our, you know, like not vacations, but like about holy months and about the, you know, the feasts that we've got in Egypt. So Ramadan, that's a month. Actually, I'm taping this video, and this is Ramadan, and I'm fasting. So fasting means that you stop eating from dawn to dusk. You stop eating, no food, no drinks, nothing comes into your mouth at all. And of course, you don't have any physical, like any sexual intercourse of any kind. This is how you fast. And fasting, Ramadan, it's a whole month. That means that every day from dawn to dusk, I'm fasting, and I don't eat until it's dusk. After that, I'm allowed to eat, to drink, to do anything that was prohibited during the day of Ramadan. It continues until, like, as I told you, like now it's like the 7th day of Ramadan. That means I have 3 weeks to go with fasting. In Egypt, they break their fasting at around 6:30, but here I have to break my fasting at around 8. So I'm trying to survive that. What is really nice about Ramadan in Egypt, and you're not going to find it anywhere else, is the decorations that all Egyptians gather together to make. So you're going to see that kind of decorations everywhere. People celebrate, you know, the month by spreading all kinds of joy in the streets, and that's their way of expressing that. And also, people exchange lanterns. You can buy lanterns and give it to you know, to a friend, or to you know, to friends or family members, and they can do the same to you. And that's a pretty sign of showing appreciation and love in Ramadan. After Ramadan is done, we have our first feast, and that feast is called Fitr feast, and we celebrate you know, that we celebrate the end of Ramadan. Not that we're happy that it ended, but it's like a way of celebrating this holy period. So during Fitr feast, we eat a lot of kinds of cookies, and we make family gatherings, we like together, we like to do a lot of family activities and so on. 2 months after Fitr feast, we have something that we call a Adha feast. That's another feast, and in this feast, we usually eat sheep meat. That's how we celebrate this feast. Of course, there's a religious background to that, but we don't really have time to explain everything. All right, so I would like to talk to you actually about the stereotypes. What are some of the stereotypes that you have heard before about Egypt and Egyptians? I'll tell you one. There's one stereotype that I was told, that we only, you know, like we only have camels there. We don't have, like, it's not a civilized, you know, You know, there is no technology, there is no public transportation, it's just camels. And this is maybe because the movies, and like this is how we are portrayed in movies. Like we wear certain type of clothes, and we wear camels, and that's it, especially in movies like the historical ones or something. But actually, as I told you, and as you may have seen, it's just a country, a normal country like any other country. And we have several means of public transportation. All right, so people think that people in Egypt, or women in Egypt, they wear niqab, which is like the, when you cover your whole face, and that all women in Egypt wear niqab, which is not correct. I wear hijab, or like that's a headscarf, but it's hijab, and I'm not covering my face. So not every woman is wearing niqab. When they do that, it's because they would like to do that. It's their own choice. One more thing that is a stereotype, and I guess 90% of people think so. They think that women are forced to wear hijab, which is not the case. I chose to wear my hijab. All of my friends and my family members, they chose to wear their own hijab. Some girls in Egypt, they chose not to wear hijab, which is totally fine. Like you can see here in this picture, you can, in one line, you can find a woman without hijab, another one with hijab, another one with niqab, and so on. So you can find all types of wear in Egypt. All right, so what to visit in Egypt? Definitely, when I say Egypt, what you think about, or what comes, you know, across your mind is the three pyramids. And this is true. This is in Giza, and it's pretty much in Cairo. And also there is the Sphinx right there. Inside of the Giza pyramids, you're going to see wonderful paintings that have been made by the pharaohs. You shouldn't miss that. Also, you can go to the Cairo Museum, which is located in Tahrir Square as well. It includes a lot of different stuff. There is actually a new one that they are working on issuing these days. And so as you can see, like the mummies, I've seen these, and it was great to see the mummies after thousands of years being buried. I mean, like that was really awesome to see that in Cairo Museum. This is how it looks like from the inside. You have several kinds of monuments, and believe me, you're gonna take 2 to 3 visits at least to go through everything. I went 2 times and I'm still not done. You can also travel to Upper Egypt. In particular, you can go to Luxor and Aswan, and that's those two, they are 2 cities, and they contain a lot of the you know, the monuments and the temples, and like the Valley of the Kings and so on. You're gonna find a lot of stuff to see there. Cairo Tower, that's one of the landmarks of Cairo, and it's considered as the second most famous landmark after the pyramids. Actually, like when you see that, you know that this is Cairo. So it's a very famous landmark. It has been the tallest structure in Egypt and North Africa for 50 years in a row. That's true. And if you ever came here, see that? This is what we call felucca. And felucca is this kind of boat, and people take you in a Nile cruise. You shouldn't miss that. This is an amazing thing to do. And take the one that sails, not the motor one, because this one is more fun. El Azhar Park, when I went to Central Park in New York, like I said, yeah, it's Central Park in New York. It reminded me of El Azhar Park because, I mean, this park is considered as the biggest park in Egypt. It's really huge, and all people from different regions go there to spend the weekend or the feasts. When you go there, there's actually my little secret place, which is El Azbakiya. That's a place located downtown, and it's for all book lovers. You can buy books, very cheap books from there, and it's not gonna cost you a fortune. You can buy some of the original books, and I mean, there are treasures over there. So yeah, I mean, you can find any kind. If you are a bookworm and you are a book lover, you definitely have to go there to buy a few books if you have ever been there as a souvenir or something. Also, before you leave Egypt, there is a place you need to visit, which is called Khan El Khalili, and it has all kinds of souvenirs. As you can see, like you can buy any kind of souvenirs with cheap prices, and you can then, you know, like give it to friends and families when you go back home. The very last thing that I would like to tell you is how people, of course, when you go there, we can easily recognize foreigners because we do have, as you can see, like the brown skin kind of skin, and we can easily recognize anybody who's a foreigner or a tourist. So if you've ever been there, people are going to recognize you, and the very first thing they're going to tell you with a smile on their faces is that they're going to tell you, welcome to Egypt. Even if they don't speak English, they still say, welcome to Egypt. And that's one of the loveliest things I love about the country. So if they told you welcome to Egypt, just make sure you smile back, because if you did answer that, they're going to be so happy that you did. Yeah. So yeah, that was me talking about my home country. I hope that was very beneficial for you guys. I hope you learned stuff that you didn't know about Egypt before. And I hope that made you actually interested in visiting my country one day. So if you ever visited Egypt, make sure to check the places I told you about. And yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching the whole video, and bye.